office. I don't know what office I'm going to run for. I took a couple weeks off looking around at where I wanted to go, and I came home one day and I said to Christy, I said, hey, look at, I'm going to run against Phil Hare. Okay. And she said to me, she goes, well, my goodness, that's U.S. House of Representatives. And I said, yeah, I know it is. So what I did was we put together a ground game. And it's funny, when I came to the party, you know, they were more of a, you know, hey, nice to have you fill in the ballot. Well, I'm one of the people that when I set out to do something, I really put all my effort into it, whether it's starting my own business from scratch, building my own home, raising a large family, really dedicated to what I do. And what we had was a grassroots effort when we saw somebody who openly came out when asked about where in the Constitution does it say you can force me to purchase a product. So hey, look, I don't worry about the Constitution when it comes to this. I worry about the people who are sick and so on and so forth. And then history was made, because what happened was our grassroots just totally expanded. And I mean, we ended up winning the election by over 10 points. So it was a pretty good race. We were pretty excited. And now what's happened is we've gotten to Washington, D.C., and we've done actually a lot of really good things. You hear the media and folks talk about how Congress isn't getting things done, and you know, nothing could be further from the truth, because this Congress has done a lot of really good things. Number one is we've changed the way they do business in Washington, D.C., from how much can we spend to how much can we save. And one of the examples I use, and my friend Eric here, I kind of get tired of hearing this as he follows me around throughout the district during this campaign cycle, because this is stuff that I'm really proud of, and this is things that you just don't hear from members of Congress or the Senate. But last year we cut our own budget. It's called leading by example. We cut our own budgets by $70,000, and then on top of that, we got down to the fiscal year end, and I had $110,000, actually a little bit more than that, left over that I gave back to the Treasury. And it was interesting because a lot of the folks that have been out there for 15, 20 years, they were upset that I was giving back $110,000 because they were concerned that it was going to make them look bad. And you know, I had one guy's like, look, you got to spend this all down because I'm not giving hardly anything back. And you know, my thing is that this is about our kids and our grandkids, and it's about doing the right thing. It's actually become a competition in Illinois with the vice president of the job. Joe Walsh, who's in the Chicago area, you know, he said to me, he came up, he goes, hey, Bobby, he goes, I'm giving back $180,000 in my budget. How much you giving back? It's like, well, wow, man, I'm only doing 110. But 110 was the most that's ever been given back in the history of the Illinois 17th district. Most folks are like, you know, how much can we spend? Let's just blow it all. What I wanted to do is just talk a little bit about some of the accomplishments of this last year. For 10 years, the Rock Island Arsenal has wanted three provisions put in the National Defense Authorization Act. My predecessor and his predecessor could not get it done in 10 years. What I did was, in a bipartisan, bi-state fashion, is I reached across the aisle to a guy by the name of David Loebsack, and I said, look, Dave, here's what they're looking for. If we work together on this, we can get it done. We actually put this deal together. We got it put together in 5 months. We got it actually signed into law, passed by the Congress, passed by the Senate, signed into law by the President of the United States. These provisions, that the big one is 4544, which the government comes in and puts a limit on the amount of partnership with the federal government and the private sector. And right now, we just hit a contract that they're looking at. They're still finishing up, but it's with Mack Trucking Company. And we've got a lot of other companies that are swarming around looking at landing on the arsenal. So the reason they're so important is because when you can get these partnerships put together and get people landing onto the Rock Island Arsenal, what happens is they fill up with jobs, and people are working, of course. But then when they come around looking for bracking, what happens is they look to see how solid either a depot or an arsenal is. If you're weak and you don't have a lot of jobs going on, then they'll take a look at pulling things away from you. If you're strong and you've got a lot of good employment going on, they kind of back off. So, you know, it's a pretty good thing to have happen. Even though the Illinois senator voted against those 3 jobs provisions, it still passed because the majority of the people in the House and the Senate realized that it was a pretty good deal for the country as a whole. Anytime you can bring competition in private sector versus government, it usually tends to be a good thing for the taxpayer. So a couple of things that we got done this year. a lot of the good ideas come from individuals, what I call the final 3 feet, we the people, so to speak. And one of the bills that I'm still working on co-sponsors on, it's called Saving versus Overspending. And I had a retired Navy admiral that came up to me. He says, "Hey, Bobby," he says, "you know, I retired, but when I was active, what would happen is I would have my airplanes at the end of my fiscal year end. If I had 200,000 bucks left over, I would put those planes up in the air and I would burn gas until I used up as much of my budget as possible." Well, I brought that conversation to Washington, and I was thinking, well, how can we change that? And what's happened is the course of years, if we incentivize people to spend down that budget, because if they spend it all down and empty it out, then next year the budget will maintain at the same. But if they have 200,000 bucks left over, they'll reduce their budget down by 200,000 or 150 or something like that. So what my bill does is it takes and basically incentivizes people to be a good steward with our tax dollar. And for example, if you got 200,000 bucks left over, it'll let you keep 50% of that towards next year's budget, and then 50% goes back towards national debt. The one thing that you'll notice here in this election, you'll see the president talk about the Congress and other things. He'll try to kind of shift the conversation away from $4 a gallon gas, the health care, $16 trillion in national debt, of all of the failures that have gone on here. The latest one that he's done, here's what happens with politicians, is he's taken this shiny silver ball and he's talking about birth control. Look at this, what the president has done here has nothing to do with birth control. It's about an attack on the Constitution of the United States of America. It's about religious freedoms, and a president that says, hey, you know what, we don't care what you guys think about your religious beliefs. We're gonna dictate to you what you're gonna do. And for example, your Catholics is who the president is attacking currently. And he's telling them, we don't care what you think about, you know, the pill, abortion, and all the other things. We're going to force you to do something against the church teachings, which is where the problem lies. There's a lot of people that are out there that are you know, using contraceptives, and that's not the story. But what they're doing is they're trying to make this what they call a war on women, and they talk about women's issues. You know, tell me one issue that's not a woman's issue. Gas, you know, employment. I mean, everything across the board. But this is to continue to divide the country. What we've seen happen over the last few years. Another big divide that we'll see, and we've seen it. Remember how they talk about corporate jet owners, and how evil those people are, and they shouldn't be able to have those. First off, those corporate jets are made in America. You know, but what we're going to see is, since the president can't talk about accomplishments, he's going to talk about other things that take the focus off of the failures of what's happened over the course of these past 3+ years. So I think that's the one thing that we have to stay focused in on. You know, what's the problem with the country? You know, there's a lot of the politicians and a lot of folks that believe that there's one solution to fixing America right now, and that's higher taxes. And I always use my business as a reference. You know, if I'm having trouble at my business, you know, the first thing I don't do is go and raise prices of my product. What I do is I have to, and that's what's nice about having all these business people in Washington, D.C., is that we have to be solution folks. We've got to find solutions to the problems. In Washington, their only solution is raise taxes. And I think what you do is you go and you find out, you know, where all the wasteful spending is, whether it's tunnels for turtles, swamp mice in California that Nancy Pelosi got $30 million for. But it's things like that. Medicare, you know, there was one doctor that he's taking in 600 clients a day, supposedly. You know, but a lot of that stuff that we've got to hone in on. Then once we can find, you know, the majority of the waste, fraud, and abuse and all the wasteful spending, and then if we still need to have money, which I don't believe if we stop the wasteful spending, we'll have to tax people more. I mean, think about this for a minute. We talked a little bit about it just a minute ago. You know, the government wants to take more of our hard-earned money, and they want to use this myth of millionaires and billionaires. We could take all of the money away from the millionaires and billionaires and not be able to run our country for a whole year. We could take all of it. it's one